Hey, everybody. Welcome to After Hours here with Jamie Hoyle, of course. We're here to celebrate the first place Chargers win on the road in Philly against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. Jamie, how are you feeling, first of all, about this win? Overall perspective after this?
Overall perspective, I mean, I feel
Yeah.
good about it. They needed the win. It was a game they had to have to climb back into first place in the division, and they found a way to get it done. And
Yeah.
once again, that way is through the magic of Justin Herbert. So hard not to feel good about it.
Yeah. And what's up, everybody? Good to see everybody in the chat. Go ahead and check in. Tell us where you're watching us from. I saw somebody here from Mexico. Fernando here from Mexico. Thanks, man. Thanks for listening. And we'll, of course, answer some questions. And Junius, we'll get that beer link in the chat soon. But first, let's talk about that last drive, because the Chargers go in and they have to go in and score in order to win this game and hold on to the ball. So let's run through that last 6 minutes and 8 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, when they first got the ball back, I had two thoughts, right? The first thought was, this reminds me so much of the Washington game and the Raider game, where they got the ball back with a lot of time left and were able to move the ball down the field and get the win. Second one was really the only thing standing between Justin Herbert and a game-winning drive against this defense is Joe Lombardi. So hopefully he doesn't screw it up. And they were able to get it done. They were able to run the ball in spots when they needed to. They had that huge 11-yard run from Eckler to get the final first drive of the game and set up a shorter field goal. They overcame, a boneheaded false start by Donald Parham with a beautifully scripted, a beautiful play call, slipping Steven Anderson out in the flat for a 13-yard gain on 1st and 15. They got the ball to Eckler. They got the ball to Keenan on a couple of big downs on that drive. They were able to basically manipulate the defense and get what they needed to get down the field and score, and they ran all but 2 seconds off the clock to win the game. It was a huge moment for this team, going for and getting 2 fourth downs, even though the officials tried to screw them with the spot on Eckler's fourth and 1 run.
Yeah.
I still can't fathom how they looked at that and thought he was short. Not only that, but how they didn't measure, and on top of that, how the replay official didn't buzz down and stop the game to have them review it, because it was so obvious that Eckler got it. But thankfully, they overcame it. They gave us a little scare there where they tried to draw the Eagles off sides on 4th and 1. They didn't get them to jump, and then they wound up going for it anyway, where it looked like they were going to settle for a long field goal. But big drive, some huge throws by Herbert, a few great play calls there to get the ball down the field, and just riding the magic of Justin Herbert's right arm when they needed it. It was huge.
Yeah, it did. It was kind of reminiscent of early on Justin Herbert. He made the plays. He was crisp today, but the Chargers had the ball with 6 minutes and 8 seconds. They could have easily went down, made a quick score, and made it a game, and had Jalen Hurts and have the defense make one stop. But they slowly and methodically brought the ball downfield. They got the field goal at the end with that big run by Eckler, which was huge. But there was just a lot of great things that happened today that we haven't seen all year. I think we'll get into that in a second. But this felt like the old Chargers before the bye week. They needed to go down and score, keep the ball, and win the game, and they did it today. They went down and gave Dustin Hopkins. I was going to say Justin Tucker. Close, but not quite Justin Tucker. Dustin Hopkins went down with the game winner. Even after that missed extra point, they still had faith in him, and he made the kick, and Chargers get a big one on the road, which is something they needed, and it's not easy going on the East Coast and getting those wins. They got a really important win, even though they should have won this game. They ended up winning. It was ugly, but the result matters. They won. They're now first place in the division.
Yeah, the result definitely matters. That's all that matters in the end, right? It's to come away with the win. It wasn't always pretty, but they got it done.
Yeah. And just to add on how important a win today is, the Bengals go out and lose to the Browns, who the Chargers already beat. The Bills lost today against the Jaguars. I don't know what the hell happened in that game that somehow turned into a defensive battle, which shouldn't have been a battle at all. The Raiders lost today. against the Giants, and then like a week ago, Derrick Henry goes down, and he's lost for the season. So there's all those top contenders before the bye week that the Chargers are going against: the Bengals, the Bills, the Raiders, obviously, who are competing for that top spot AFC West, all lost today, and then Titans, who look like a juggernaut on Monday night. Derrick Henry goes down, and they're a different team now. So it's really, really important that they got this win today, and they did, and they were able to gain some ground on some of those AFC teams as you're looking forward in that playoff picture that might loom large as the season kind of ticks on here.
Yeah. Just keep yourself in the hunt. This is a game of attrition. It's a long season. People are going to get hurt. They're going to get suspended, whatever might happen. Teams are going to lose games they shouldn't lose. So keep yourself in the hunt, keep fighting, keep scratching, keep clawing. You never know what somebody else might do to give you an advantage later in the season. But you got to keep yourself alive. And they did that. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't always pretty. You'd like to see them go in and trounce what is a pretty below average Eagles team, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Not a great defense, not a particularly great offense, but they make the play. They basically move the ball at will all day. They didn't punt once. They settled for the one field goal at the end of the game to win it. They were able to do what they needed to do to get the win.
Yeah, so let's talk about one of the bigger storylines here, and that's the involvement of the tight ends. I mean, the Jared Cook, Donald Parham, Steven Andersons were absolute matchup busters today. Outside of that penalty on Steven Anderson, he was just a key cog in this offense today. He got the touchdown. Big blocker in the run game. He sprung Eckler a couple times. He also got that sneaky good push on Herbert on that sneak on the 4th and 1 at the end of that game where they needed that extra yard. Steven Anderson came up behind him, gave him that extra shove, and made sure he got that first down. Steven Anderson was something else today. And I don't want to harp back onto this, and this isn't the point here, but going into the season and even into this offseason, we saw flashes of how good Steven Anderson could be. We knew Donald Parham flashed a lot last season too, and they got Jared Cook to get a guy like Trey McKitty, still very questionable with how these tight ends are playing right now. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, it almost seems like they're activating him these last couple of weeks just to prove a point, like just to make themselves feel better about drafting McKitty, because there really is no role on this offense outside of an extra blocker for McKitty at this point. I know people were very upset, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, here in a few minutes, but people were upset with some of the play calling from Joe Lombardi today. I know I was at different points of the game, but you got to give him credit in terms of getting the tight ends involved. Like you mentioned, this is an offense that has had a hard time consistently getting the tight ends involved. You got some timely big plays out of Steven Anderson that helped scoring drives. You got some big plays out of both Cook and Parham. The jump ball to Parham down the right sideline was beautiful. The touchdown pass to him, getting him out in space one-on-one with a smaller corner, was beautiful. I mean, there were some very well-timed, well-designed, well-called plays to get the tight ends involved in key moments of that game to either move the chains or put points on the board that were huge for this offense. So there's plenty of room for criticizing Lombardi, even after a game where the Chargers put up 445 yards of offense. But give him credit. Getting Keenan involved, getting the tight ends involved. I think Herbert completed passes to 9 different receivers today, 7 of whom had at least 2 catches in the game. Everybody was involved to some extent. They got the big play out of Mike. They got some huge third down catches out of Keenan, who finally had a Keenan-like game.
Yeah.
Just that they did a good job of getting everybody involved and keeping that ball moving and putting points on the board.
Yeah. I mean, they obviously saw some kind of mismatch with that second level of that Eagles defense, which isn't good. I mean, they're pretty good up front on the defensive line, but outside in the back end, middle of the field, they were all susceptible to big games today. I kind of thought Keenan Allen would have a big game today, but there was that early on troubles with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen where it just seemed like Justin Herbert had too much mustard on the ball. I don't know if he just got a little jittery to begin the game, but man, those things were flying in, and they had no chance to get in those balls. And I know they worked with the jugs machines in the off week, and everybody's talking about how that made a difference late in that game. So, good on everybody to make catches when it matter later on. And there was a question here about Anderson, since we're talking about tight ends. Gabe Neighbors here, not getting so many spots. Has Anderson taken Gabe Neighbors' spot? He was inactive today.
I mean, even in games where Neighbors has been active, Anderson's been the primary fullback. He's been the primary lead blocker in the running game. They've been trying to script plays for him to get him open in space and sneak him out into passing routes. So I think Anderson's been the guy really all season. Neighbors, I think, has been on the roster, had a couple carries. He's been active for a handful of games, but just hasn't had the snaps or the play time that Anderson has had. So I think Anderson is the guy. I don't know why they're carrying Neighbors at this point, outside of maybe COVID protection. He really hasn't done much this season. I think he ran for 1 first down, caught a couple passes, and has maybe contributed a little bit on special teams. He just hasn't been on the field that much.
Yeah, a guy that you thought would contribute on special teams early on, and not doing that right now. Jason here wanted to talk about the O-line. Didn't hear Storm Norton's name once. That's a good day. When you don't hear Storm Norton's name, that's a good day. Didn't give up a single sack today. The Chargers O-line didn't, and also didn't punt once today. So, they did the job. It hurt them when they needed it on a couple fourth downs, but they were good all day today. No real problems.
The line was good. I think they really struggled to run the ball consistently, at least. I saw somebody mention the toss plays, to keep going back to those toss plays, especially on 3rd and short, 4th and short, toss the ball 5 yards deep in the backfield and be trying to pick up yardage on those plays over and over and over again, when it was obvious the Eagles had those plays sniffed out and they were not going to convert. I think that's something they got to work on. Way too reliant on those toss plays. Very frustrating today.
What happened? Did Lombardi have some kind of quota today? It was unreal. We hadn't seen a lot of that toss at all. And then we saw just a run of them today. The most egregious one was that one to Joshua Kelly on a 4th and 2. Running a toss play or a reverse where you're running backwards when you need to go forward for 2 yards on an important down like 4th down is never the right idea. And especially if you're putting in your RB2/3. 4 maybe. Yeah, who was just inactive not too long ago because he couldn't be top 3. Yeah, so the fact that they didn't get Eckler in that play was strange, but that's an issue. Those tosses were bad, and I made a joke on Twitter, that it was like it worked once in the red zone and Austin Eckler gets a first down. It was like, well, Lombardi's going to dial up 2 or 3 more, and it happened again 2 or 3 more times, and then the last one, the third one, was a 2-yard loss with Austin Eckler. They did not work. They just aren't able to get in space. It wasn't working today. And for whatever reason, Lombardi wanted to spread out that defense, get them running a little bit, get that offensive line in space, and it didn't work.
Yeah, I think it was pretty clear really that the Eagles are just faster than the Chargers up front. So they were chasing those plays down from behind and cutting off the gaps. It was pretty evident on the first couple toss plays. So to keep going back to them, like I said, was really frustrating. And the one to Kelly on 4th and 2, I mean, the running back on the roster with the worst vision, he's the least elusive running back on the roster, and he's basically just a straight line downhill guy. He's not going to make any cuts. He's not particularly fast. So to ask him to pick up that key 4th and 2 play, tossing the ball behind the line of scrimmage, it's like when they used to do it with Melvin Gordon. It just doesn't work.
No.
So let's ditch those plays, please.
Yeah. Those were not working all day today. And also just to kind of go on to the 4th down play, there's a lot of conversation today where people were like, oh, people hate the 4th down plays now that they're not working. And that is so far from the point. The reason that people were complaining on Twitter about the 4th down play was because it was a bad play, not because of the decision to go for it on 4th down. Those were all the right decisions. It wasn't like I would have absolutely gone for all those 4th downs that Staley did. I know that goal line series where they ended up giving Jalen Hurts the ball back there and they don't get points. People were complaining about that in hindsight, but I mean, they needed to get a lead, and they were doing whatever they could to get down that field early on, and it seemed like a gimme that they could get in on 4 tries and get a touchdown. I would have trusted my offense to get a touchdown there with the way they were playing. I would have absolutely gone for it. The fact that they missed it does not matter. So that, there's just that narrative of like, oh, fans are turning on Staley because he's gambling now. They're not getting it. That's not the point. The point is a toss to Joshua Kelly, your running back with the worst vision, who is not playing well right now on an important fourth down play, 4th and 2, is a bad play. It's not a bad decision. It's not a bad decision to go for it. It was just like that play. Was it Baltimore where they did that timing route to Joshua Palmer on a 4th down play? That wasn't, the decision was right. They needed to go for it on 4th down. The call wasn't right.
The wrong play to the wrong player.
Yeah. And that's what they did today with Joshua Kelly. So just because people are jumping on that play doesn't mean it wasn't the right decision, because it was.
Yeah, I think, especially the call on the goal line on the first possession. So, I saw a lot of people screaming about just take the points. Why wouldn't you just take the points? You're on the road, kick the field goal. We should be up 10, 3-0 right now, 10-0 after the first 2 drives. Here's the thing is the Chargers can't stop the run. Their defense is not very good. There's 2 ways to stop the run in the NFL. One is with your defense, with a physical front 7. Chargers don't have that. They just don't.
No.
The other way is to take long drives, move the ball down the field, and score touchdowns and discourage teams from running the ball because they feel like you're shortening the game on them. The Chargers knew they weren't going to be able to stop the Eagles' running game because they can't stop anybody's running game. So they were looking to put 7 points on the board, take a 7, 8, 9-minute drive, go down the field, score 7, and hopefully make it more difficult for the Eagles to lean on the run. Because I'm sure they were thinking, we're going to score every time we touch the ball against the Eagles, because that is not a very good defense.
That's how it felt. That's how it felt when they started the game. That's absolutely how it felt.
Yeah. They knew we're not going to start the run. We're not going to stop the run, and we're going to score. We can move the ball at will. They can't stop us. So let's just put the ball in the end zone, start this game off right. We'll go get another stop, and we'll get the ball back. We'll be up 14. They won't be able to run the ball. That's the game plan, because they know they can't stop the run. Doesn't matter what they tell you in their press conferences. They cannot stop the run, and they know it. They don't have the personnel to do it right now. So that's the plan. They're trying to take the Eagles out of their game, make them feel like the game is short, make them feel like they have to throw the ball more.
Yep.
So that is a good strategic play. The flip side of that is, if you don't get it, they get the ball on the 1-yard line, basically on the goal line at that point.
Yeah.
They've got to go 99 yards, and you've got a chance to maybe get a safety or get really good field position. So they didn't get the 7. They did get the good field position, and they went right down the field in like 3 or 4 plays and scored a touchdown on the next possession.
Yep.
So they were setting themselves up for the next drive by going for it on 4th down. If they get it, great. That's what you're going for. If not, you've got that short field. You're probably going to take the lead anyway, because the chances of the Eagles going 99 yards, not great.
No.
So it's the right decision all the way around. Now, you can argue throwing the ball to Mike Williams behind the sticks on 3rd down after a run on 2nd down, not a great play call. Throwing the ball to Keenan, basically behind the sticks again on 4th down and waiting for him to make a play in space. Again, not a great play call. There's so many things they can do there to get the ball in the end zone. Throw a jump ball to Mike, throw a jump ball to Parham, run a little RPO and get Herbert out on the edge. There's so many things they can do to create confusion and get a touchdown there. It just felt like they were discombobulated in the red zone early in the game. The timing wasn't right. The tempo wasn't right. They were just out of sync. They did so well getting down there on the first drive, and then the timing and the tempo got stalled. The play calling got stalled, and they ran out of gas on that first drive. But it was the right call. Great call to go for it. Bad play calls, poor execution, but the right call on that first 4th down. And then the one to Kelly, again, short field, looking to move the ball down and score a touchdown, hopefully take them out of the running game a little bit. Right decision, wrong play call, poor execution.
Yep. Yeah. So let's move off of this. And I was gonna talk about this today, but how about Linval Joseph today? An absolute monster in the middle. Maybe his best game as a Charger. He led the team in tackles. Can you believe that nose tackle led the team in tackles? That's how active he was today. He was great. And we've been dogging Linval Joseph all season long, but he was incredible today. He was really good.
Yeah, there are a few points at that game where you're kind of watching it like, man, this defense has no heart. And then every time I was about to tweet out something like that, Linval would make a stop in the running game.
Mm-hmm.
Linval's got heart.
Yeah.
Bosa's got heart. Really, nobody else does at this point on that defense. They're getting run over left and right, and Linval played mad today. He looked like he was tired of getting run over, and he was just looking to hit somebody. And he made a lot of great plays today. So he had a fantastic game in spite of the god-awful performance against the run.
Yeah, well, I would say, there's some other guys that have some. I thought Kaiser and Drew did pretty good today. The run defense was awful. God, they were bad again today. And I don't want to do what I told you so, but man, Justin Jones isn't helping, guys. That whole return of Justin Jones and giving that boost to the running game didn't help. And even that that kind of story going in from last week about how the Patriots had less than 4 yards per carry. It was like 3.4 or something, and how they were doing better now with the run defense. The Patriots used the run game to absolutely run down the end of that game and win that game. So, no, the run defense is bad. I don't know how they're going to fix it. Trade deadline is gone and past, but it was a bad defense. But Linval Joseph was a lone bright spot. The pressure early on from Joey Bosa, Uchenna Nwosu was great. It got to Jalen Hurts early. Bosa got a sack, which was a assist by throwing the offensive lineman at Jalen Hurts' feet and tripping him. That was a great sack. And there were some bright spots of the defense. I thought Tavon Campbell had a pretty good game today. But yeah, Linval Joseph was good. He may be the best defender on the field today.
I thought they did a good job, at least early in the game, of scheming up some pressures without having to send too many extra people. Seemed like they had Hurts a little rattled in the pocket the first couple of possessions where he was kind of jumping around, maybe had some happy feet there, and he was having a hard time settling into his throws. They weren't getting to him physically, but they were getting to him and rushing throws and forcing some errant throws. So that helped. That kind of went away later in the game as they were getting worn down by the running game. The pass rush kind of fell off a little bit. Yeah, I thought the pass rush was good early. Mm-hmm. They just don't have the personnel to stop the run right now. I mean, they're small up front. Mm-hmm. They're trying to play fast at the second level, but they just can't keep their linebackers clean. They're not getting enough penetration. They don't have anybody really holding up against double teams consistently. They're just really struggling.
Yeah. Philadelphia sent a lot of offensive linemen to the second level today because they knew that everybody else could win their one-on-one matchups at the front line, and they did. Linval Joseph did great to get his, but man, they were picking off Drew and Kaiser all day today, which is something I think teams are going to start doing as they go on. We got this question from LJ Carter, who's checking in from Western Australia. Good day, mate. Which position group do you think was the biggest disappointment today? Love your content. Don't catch it live. Love the positives. Question for you. So which position group was the biggest disappointment for you, Jamie? Is it the defensive line? Is it who we just talked about?
I would say probably the defensive line.
Yeah.
You could say the secondary, but they were playing so many backups, so many depth pieces in the secondary that it's really hard to blame anybody outside of Chris Harris, who was god-awful.
Hey, Chris Harris is absolutely, positively cooked. He is washed. He is no longer the top 5 nickel corner that he was 3, 4, 5 years ago. He is an absolute liability. And this defense was so much better when he wasn't on it. And the defense was clicking early in that season when they had Tavon Campbell starting over Chris Harris when he had his injury. And you don't want to wish injuries on anybody, but they were a much better it's facts. They were so much better when Tavon Campbell was in there. Once Chris Harris came back, there was all this confusion. And then now they're getting these guys matched up on him that he just cannot run with. He is too old and he's too slow. He's cooked. And they showed it today with Devontae Smith. It is a bad matchup.
Yeah, he can't run, period. No. And they're asking him to carry Devontae Smith across the field on a consistent basis as the outside corner. It just doesn't work. When Davis and Samuel come back, Harris needs to go to the bench. I mean, I know they think he's versatile, and they had him playing safety, and they had him playing money, and they had him playing star and slot and outside. In this particular case, versatile is just code for not particularly good at anything, but can do a little bit of everything. Very, 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 very little bit of everything. He is David Eckstein or
Oh, look
Jeff
at you,
Blum.
utility man.
He's the utility man with no actual real skills left. So it's time to abandon that experience, that experiment, I should say. He's just not very good anymore. The athleticism isn't there. The speed isn't there. He's getting beat, it seems like, on every play when they try to throw it. I mean,
Yeah,
the Phillies are picking on him left and right today
the
for
Phillies.
big plays. The Phillies, the Eagles,
You're in your
excuse me.
baseball
Mode.
mindset.
The Eagles are picking on him left and right today.
Yeah, they were. And to be honest, looking on the outside, I thought Devon Campbell had a pretty good game today. Kemon Hall was good today. I thought Ryan Smith, before he went down with his little injury, was good today. I didn't see any real issues from the outside. I mean, I'll check him out on the rewatch, but the real big splash plays were against Chris Harris. He was the only guy who was always trailing his man. He just doesn't have the speed anymore. And I don't know how you're going to be able to hide that anymore. Because I mean, he's not running. He had Hurst didn't see him. He tucked it and run, but Dallas Goedert got behind Chris Harris. I mean, forget about Devontae Smith.
Yeah, he got behind Harris a couple times. Did Goddard early in the game. Yeah. They got away with one of them. One of them should have been a touchdown. They got away with it.
So a lot of people asking in the chat about where is he? God, I missed his name. Hold on a second. We're almost there. Dang it. It's Andre Roberts. Andre Roberts, I found it. Big difference. We got to see what a real return man does today. When that punt you're talking about today out of the end zone was able to take it into plus territory on the kick return, had a couple good returns, and then had some positive plays all game in the return game, and then also on offense had that little jet sweep, which is the way to go instead of Jalen Guyton. That's the guy to go to, and I do like his role in the offense, even though he didn't get a lot of targets today. Is you've got a speed guy that you have to account for, which means that Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are freed up in the middle intermediate routes and gives you zones for you to pick on in the middle of the field. And that's why you got some tight ends sitting there open today. I loved having Andre Roberts on the field a lot more today.
Yeah, Roberts looked great. I mean, he had a 39-yard kickoff return, a 10-yard punt return. I think his other 3 kicks, he averaged about 20 yards on his other 3 kicks, but that 39-yarder was huge for them, gave them some good field position for a key drive. So yeah, Roberts, very valuable on special teams, obviously. He ran the jet sweep that actually looked like what a jet sweep is supposed to look like. It shouldn't take 15 seconds for the receiver to get across the field. Cut it upfield, got his 7 yards on first down, made a nice little play. I don't know how much we'll see of him actually running routes downfield as a receiver, but if you're going to use him as a gadget guy on those jet sweeps, for window dressing, bring him across the formation and things like that, there's some value there. And obviously, like I said, very valuable on kick returns.
Yeah. He was a big bright spot for special teams. Special teams good all around, like Vial Productions is talking about, but outside of the missed extra point there by Dustin Hopkins, they ended up getting it back by going for 2. But yeah, special teams all around, probably their best day to date this season.
Yeah, I would say so. Like you said, outside of the one missed extra point, everything else was pretty clean. We actually even saw them, after a couple of touchdowns, play for field position with short kicks and come away making good tackles. There was one play where they kicked the ball into the corner and Adderley came down and made a big hit on a kick return. I think it was right after Herbert ran the ball in to take the lead at 24-17. And I think they did that twice, where they played for field position with short kicks. So being able to take some of those chances, trusting your kicker to put the ball where it needs to be on kickoffs, no big leaks. Well, they didn't punt, so there were no big leaks on punt returns. Didn't really see any real big leaks in the kicking game outside of, I think, one return. So pretty solid day all the way around. The special teams contributed in some important ways and a couple of, I would say, under the radar ways with the field position.
Yeah. Frank Blakely talking about how he's a little surprised that the Chargers defense is getting pushed around after hiring a defensive-minded coach, thinking the same thing. This was his calling card. This was his staple. This is the thing that he was going to be doing here and bringing a new defense. But we've talked about how he might not be making all the calls. That front office obviously has some pull, but it's hard to imagine that you go into the season and think you're pretty good at defensive line. You add a Christian Covington and you go, that's it. We're done. We've got it. And then the trade deadline comes, you see it isn't working, and then go, Justin Jones might help out, and then don't pick anybody up. He just doesn't have the talent.
Yeah, I think, and this is just speculation on my part. Obviously, I'm not in the front office, but in my opinion, I think what we're seeing is at certain positions groups and with certain players, we're seeing Brandon Staley kind of having to give Tom Telesco an opportunity to see his own failures and to think that fixing them is his idea. So, it seemed like they forced KJ Hill on him as a kick returner and a punt returner, right? Took him 7 weeks, didn't work. After the bye, they get rid of him. They bring in Andre Roberts. Okay, we screwed up. They still put him on the practice squad because Tom wasn't ready to give up on KJ.
Mm-hmm.
But very obvious, he is not an effective kick returner or punt returner. They threw him out there. They gave him his chance. He screwed up game after game after game. Finally get rid of him. Okay, you know what? He isn't the answer. They bring in a better option. Same thing with the kicking game. They wanted to stick with Tristan. I'm sure that was coming from the front office. They wrote it out through the bye week. At the end of the bye week, they bring in Hopkins. Things are improving.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's an element here of Tom needing to see his projects fail and Staley basically saying, hey, I know this isn't going to work, but if this is what you want, this is what we're going to have to do for now until you're willing to see for yourself that it doesn't work. Another example, it sounds like, might be Kenneth Murray, who they're now talking about moving at least in some kind of a limited role over to the edge after wanting to force him as a square peg into a round hole in that middle linebacker spot. Now they're realizing they need Tranquil and White on the field together. And if you want them on the field together, the only way to get Murray on the field together and get the most out of him is to put him on the edge. And now they're talking about, quote unquote, his role evolving.
Right.
When Staley was asked about moving him to the edge. So I just think they're working through some differences in opinion, some differences in philosophy. And hopefully as more and more of these things pan out and Tom sees that Brandon knows what he's talking about and that these projects aren't working, Brandon will continue to get more and more say in the personnel and they'll be able to make some of these changes. And I think it's also really important to remember here that I lost my train of thought.
You were talking. Yeah, go ahead.
With respect to the defense in particular and the defensive line group, they're getting pushed around because they do not have a playmaker in the middle of the defensive line. Their playmaker is on the edge. His whole defensive scheme is based around having a playmaker in the middle of the line who opens up opportunities for guys on the outside and creates one-on-one opportunities for the rest of the line. That's what they had with Aaron Donald, who was able to take on and beat double teams and create one-on-one opportunities for other guys on that line. Right now, they don't have that. They're getting Bosa double and triple teamed, and nobody's winning one-on-ones anywhere else. They need that playmaker in the middle of this defense to make this scheme work. They don't have it. I have to believe Brandon Staley knew that going into the season, and he's just writing out some of these personnel mistakes, some of these poor evaluations by Telesco, and hoping that as Telesco sees more and more of them, he'll get more say in what he needs.
All right, let's get back to the game here. Miles is talking about how there was no QB spy on Hurts. He was kind of running all over the place today, running free. I don't think it was so much a QB spy issue as it was there was just no contain today. There was nobody on the edge. Fackrell cut too far inside, lost his contain. Joey Bosa had that one-on-one where they let him free and Hurts just let him go. And there was no contain today, and Hurts could do whatever he wanted. None of the edge guys were able to box him in most of the day today. So whether they had a QB spy on him or not, I mean, he's so quick that you got to have to be able to contain him and box him in. And that's how teams have been able to beat him early on this year. The Chargers just could not do it today.
Yeah. I think there were a couple of issues. One was a lack of contain. The other issue was they were getting beat up on the ground, and were exhausted by the end of the game.
For
And the
sure.
last one is when they did have contain, they got held, and those holds allowed Hurts to get outside.
Oh, how many
There
times did
were
Joseph get held today?
Oh,
4,
Joseph got held
5?
a couple times. There were a couple on Bosa on the edge. I mean,
Uh-huh.
guys just getting tackled from behind, like bear hugged as they're trying to, as they're trying to shed the blocker, bear
Yeah.
hugged from behind and dragged down to the ground right in front of the official with no call. I mean, you can make the argument that there's a holding call on every play, but then there are holding calls, and these guys were getting mugged and they were blatant. I mean, you could see them in live action. They were so obvious. And just no call. So that contributed a lot to the lack of contain as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, there were a lot of issues today, and they, obviously a win is a win, and the result matters. The Chargers needed this win on a day where a lot of teams, like we mentioned earlier in the AFC, went down today. So that's good, and they were able to jump up in first place again, AFC West. Obviously, to get to the playoffs, you got to win the division, and that's how the Chargers are looking right now. But man, there were some issues today, and if they head into a playoffs with that kind of run defense, I mean, it's probably going to be a quick visit to those playoffs because I don't know how they're going to be able to win very many games with a run defense as soft as they were today.
Yeah, I mean
Which,
they've got a
sorry,
chance to make the playoffs if they keep winning, but they're a flawed playoff team at this point. They're very, in my opinion, they're very one-dimensional as a playoff team, and they've got to lean way too much on Herbert to win games. They just don't have the playmakers on defense right now outside of Bosa and Derwin, and to a lesser extent Tranquil and White, to be able to make the plays they need to make to win playoff games. So I think the playoffs are going to be a challenge for them. They're going to run into teams that can run the ball extremely well, and it's going to give them fits.
yeah, which Dan Mack is bringing up now. Next week, it starts next week. Dalvin Cook and the Minnesota Vikings come to town, and he thinks he's going 200 plus. It's going to be a tough day for the Chargers run defense and Dalvin Cook if they're letting Jordan Howard run all over them.
It's going to be a really tough day, but I think the plus side of that is that I don't think Cousins is playing all that particularly well right now, and that offense is pretty one-dimensional as well.
Mhm.
So maybe you get a couple stops early in the game, get out to a quick 14-0,
Like Payway
17-0
says.
kind of lead and discourage them from running the ball.
Yep, yep, and then just pin your ears back and get after Cousins.
Yep.
And so Scott Shearer asks, "You still worried about Kansas City?"
Less and less so with every passing week. They
Yeah,
did win today, and they've won 2 in a row, or maybe 3 in a row.
I'm not. I think 2.
2. But they're not playing well. That offense is nowhere near as explosive as it has been,
Mm-mm.
turning the ball over left and right. Somehow the defense is playing really well. That defense is garbage. I don't know how they're how
They're
they're
so
playing as
bad
well
on
as they
paper.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're blitzing a lot too, which they blitz Jordan Love a lot. If they do that to Herbert, they might be in some trouble.
Oh
So
yeah. They can get
not
away
as
with that with
worried about
Jordan Love.
KC as I was.
Yeah, me neither. No, you think at some point that Mahomes would be able to figure it out and turn the turnovers down a little bit, but it's been the same thing for week in week out, and they are just not playing good, and they're barely beating really bad teams. And I know the Chargers just did that today, but also the Chargers have some signature wins where they just went out and beat teams. So Kansas City hasn't really had that kind of win this year, and so I'm not so worried about it. Let's
Yeah, I
see.
think they'll have a hard. I mean, they're only one game out or a half game out right now,
Yep.
but I think they kind of are what they are this season. They're just sloppy and messy and not playing well.
What do you think about Denver? They went out and beat the Cowboys bad today. You a believer in Denver, or was that just kind of caught them on a bad day?
I think Dak is less than 100%. I don't I don't think the Cowboys are really what people want them to be at this point. They're good, but I don't think they're as great as people want them to be, as the media is building them up to be. I'm not that worried about Denver. I don't think they can win with Bridgewater or Locke
Yeah. Mhm.
in December. And
Yeah.
that's what it's going to come down to.
I still think they are still pretenders. They're not a good team.
And they, to be honest with you, after trading Von Miller, They might have just had an inspired effort after losing Miller. I don't think that's something that defense can continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jay Freeman here. Biggest threat left on the schedule. Let me read the last remaining games and you tell me which one's the biggest threat. Vikings, Steelers, Broncos, Bengals, Giants, Chiefs, Texans, and Raiders. There's also Broncos again, but
Go through that again. Sorry.
Vikings, Steelers, Broncos, Bengals, Giants, Chiefs, Texans, Raiders.
I would say
I'll go. You want me to go first?
go first.
Okay. I'm going to say Cincinnati. Cincinnati seems to be real hot. I know they lost today against the Browns, but they're at the top of the AFC right now. I know the division games are going to matter, but the best team right now left on the schedule is probably the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's going to be a tough matchup against the Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow, who's playing pretty well. So I would say probably the biggest threat left is the Bengals.
I would say either the Bengals or the Steelers. And the only reason I mentioned the Steelers is because they always seem to have blitz packages down the
Always.
Chargers.
Always.
And they're going to put TJ Watt on Storm Norton. So
yeah,
that's a game on the schedule that I think is going to give the Chargers some problems.
Even with the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger at quarterback, they are going to have something for the Chargers for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's the Bengals. Let's see. Anything? Let's talk about how Lombardi was able to get Herbert out of the pocket today. A little bit better today than usual, which is a kind of refreshing.
Yeah, I think this is a good time to kind of talk about Lombardi's game in general today. We talked about the fourth down calls. It was good to see him get Herbert out of the pocket more. There were a couple of RPOs where he got outside and was able to find receivers in space where they had some good high-low concepts for him.
Yep.
Easy reads, 1-2 run kind of a thing. And in most of those cases, they had somebody open, in that deep area, and he was able to go high and complete a pass. So that's encouraging, using Herbert's athleticism, getting him out of the pocket, not making him a statue, not making him so easy to find for the pass rushers. Very important. He's also very good at throwing the ball on the edge on the run. So you want to use more of that. So that's encouraging. I still have an issue. I'm beginning to have more and more of an issue with Lombardi's play calling, even in a game where they put up 445 yards and 27 points. And here's why: is they still have big problems on second down. I think he's becoming very predictable. I was tracking his play calls early in the game, and I kind of lost track of it. But I know through the first couple possessions, 3 possessions, I think, their first 12 first down plays they ran, 6 runs, 6 passes. And they literally went run, pass, run, pass, run, pass, run, pass on each one of their first 12 first down plays. So he seems like he's so focused on that balance between run and pass, that he's just trying to manage it by alternating every first down play, which becomes pretty predictable. You can even predict when he's going to run a play action based on how many times he's run it. So that's an issue for me. They were more effective on first down today, and they were able to pick up some chunks on first down, which was good, but still very predictable. And then second down, way too many 2nd and 10 runs. It happens, it seems like, all the time. If first down doesn't work, they're running on second down. Just awful. Even if they get 2 or 3 yards on first down, they're running on second down. 2nd and 10, 2nd and 7, 2nd and 6. That's problematic. Also, too many plays short of the sticks on third down early in the game. They got better with it later in the game, but Keenan running 4-yard slants on 3rd and 6. Of course, that tells you they're going to go for it on 4th down, but you'd much rather they just pick it up on 3rd down than go for it on 4th down. So I think these are things that have been a problem all season, and they continue to become more and more of a problem because you can see Lombardi beginning to fall into a pattern. And anytime you fall into a pattern, if I can see it, opposing, defensive coordinators can see it. So that's something they got to clean up. They have to be a little bit less predictable. And then the red zone issues, that first red zone possession we talked about, they get down there on first down. I think they threw a pass on first down, and then they run it on second down with Eckler, and then they throw that wide receiver screen to Mike on third, which had way too much mustard on it.
Mhm.
Then they run it short of the end zone on fourth down.
Yep.
Just bad play calling and poor execution, and they were just out of sync. If you're gonna go for it on fourth down, fourth and goal, throw the ball in the end zone. If you get stopped on first down, why are you running it on second down? Now you need to pick up the tempo and throw the ball a little bit. Use your playmakers to your advantage. Stop running the ball up the middle on second and goal. So they fall into these patterns. They get themselves behind the sticks, and then things kind of go haywire. As long as they're ahead of the sticks, they're fine. But as soon as they start falling behind the sticks, that's where the play calling starts going a little haywire, and it's like they're getting conservative, and I don't want to say they don't trust Herbert, but it just seems like they're afraid of something bad happening, and their tolerance for risk reward throwing the ball down the field tends to dwindle on second and long. So those are things that I noticed. I just think that even in a game where they moved the ball at will, there were times where it seemed like Lombardi was stopping them with his play calling and was getting predictable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the second down is something we've talked about for weeks. It's always that first down pass, whether it's caught or not, it's the second down run. It feels like almost every time it's a gimme. And it happened on that fourth down, like you're talking about. And just to add on to what you're talking about, something that I can't stop thinking about is all we kept hearing was this is the New Orleans offense. We're going to see Mike Williams in that big X role like he was early on in the year, which hasn't happened the last 3 or 4 games now, but that's a different point. But Austin Eckler was going to be this team's Alvin Kamara, and he is absolutely not that guy. They don't get him out on screens. They don't get him more involved in the passing game. They don't have any design really for him to really get downfield, match up on linebackers, get him in the passing game more. There are very few and in between kind of dump offs and stuff that usually don't work. But he was supposed to be racking up, 5 to 6 targets a game. Alvin Kamara is racking up in his heyday was racking up like 8 to 10 targets. And we were excited to see when you have a player like Austin Eckler, why not get him in space, run a couple screens, line him out wide, get him in the slot, get him matched up on a linebacker. But we're not seeing a lot of those. And that's been concerning because we're in week 9.
Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing any of that. We're almost halfway through the season. So, I have a problem with Lombardi's play calling. I think he's doing just enough to get these Chargers to win right now, which is okay. But at some point you got to turn that around because the way in which they were utilizing Mike Williams early on was the exact way you got to use Mike Williams. Now, all of a sudden he's the deep threat, and he made that great catch late, which was awesome. But what happened to that easy, a big X possession receiver? We're not seeing any of those, quick hitters, timing routes these last few weeks. And he's not getting those jump balls in the end zone. He had the one early on, which was kind of a timing route that just didn't work out. Herbert kind of sailed it on him a little bit or had a little bit too much zip on it, but we're just not seeing the role that Mike Williams was built for, which is that X, and then we're not seeing or that Z X whatever, and then we're not seeing Austin Eckler utilizing the passing game nearly enough.
Yeah, I think the biggest knock is really the lack of Austin Eckler in the passing game. If they're using him as a dump off, there is no screen game. He's basically a wide receiver playing running back in a lot of ways. So they really need to use him as a route runner, as a legitimate route runner. Yeah. Get him in space. That was one thing, as much as I couldn't stand Shane Steichen and I couldn't stand Anthony Lynn. Here comes something I never thought I would say. I'm going to compliment Steichen.
Here we go.
They understood one thing, and that was how to use Austin Eckler as a route runner and create opportunities for him in space. Now, sometimes they leaned on that too much in a lot of cases. But where are the wheel routes? Where are the seam routes? Where are the opportunities for Eckler to challenge a linebacker in space down the field? These are things that he's done well his entire career. You can't cover him with a linebacker. A lot of safeties can't cover him. And there's no screen game. There's no route running for him. They ran, I think, one screen for him today, and it was with 19 seconds left in the first half, where they're basically just running a giveaway play to see if they can get a chunk of yards. That's something that needs to change. That's a huge part of this offense that's missing, and it's a big problem. It's a huge knock on Lombardi, in my opinion, because that should be easy. With Mike outside and Keenan in the slot, it should be easy to find opportunities for Eckler to run screens and run routes, and they just haven't done it.
Yeah, and now add on those tight ends that are becoming a big part of this offense. I mean, you got to work on every level. They can't run everybody at Eckler, and when they do, I mean, look at him when he's got people in space just on the ground. You'd be able to think that, hey, if you get him in space, it would work. I mean, listen, the plays to Steven Anderson today, that screen to Steven Anderson was great, and I loved it. But imagine Austin Eckler. I mean, that probably would have been 6. But, that's hopefully that's coming. I hope that's one of those things that they kind of held back a little bit. Definitely not enough wheel routes or lining them up wide or screens for my liking. Go ahead and get your questions. Then I think we're going to probably wrap up today. I think just to end it again, it's, they got to win on the road, which was really tough today. They could not stop the run. They could not stop Jalen Hurts and contain him at all today, but they found a way to win late in that game where they needed to bleed 6 minutes and 10 seconds, 8 seconds and win that game. And they drove down methodically, got the field goal and won the game when they needed to. It felt like the old Chargers where they kind of limited those splash plays outside of Chris Harris, of course, getting burnt, but they limited a lot of that and gave up a lot on the ground, but then came back and won the game, which was important.
Yeah, no, I agree. You said it. They got a big win. They were able to make plays when they needed to on offense. They moved the ball basically at will for the majority of the game, which makes it weird to criticize Joe Lombardi when he's calling plays that are resulting in 445 yards of total offense. To keep things in perspective here a little bit, but I going back to Lombardi a little bit, they're leaning way too much on Herbert. And as much as you want Herbert to go out and win the games, they're asking too much of him on 3rd and long. They got to give him more manageable 3rd down opportunities, and they're just not doing enough of that with the 1st and 2nd down play calling. But to go on the road, travel across the country, no less, play a late game across the country, and win that game the way they did and run out basically the last 6 minutes and 10 seconds or whatever it was huge. Yeah. Like I said, it reminded me of the Washington game. It reminded me of the Raider game.
Yep.
They were able to run the ball when they needed to. They were able to move the chains and score points when they needed to put the game away, and they didn't give Philly a chance to come back and win it.
Yeah, and how big was that Eckler run at the very end?
Yep, that run was huge. Although it almost looked like he didn't know they had to down that ball. He got up and he kind of celebrated and had the ball in his hand. There was no urgency to get back on the line there for a second before Herbert snapped him out of it. But to be able to run the clock out the last 6 minutes of that game and come away with a win is huge. That's what good teams do. They find a way to kill those final 4 to 6 minutes and score the points they need.
Yep. Let's see. Who do you think is going to be playing edge going forward? Kyler Murray? Because he wrote Kyler here. I'm assuming he's saying Kyler Murray? Or do you think he's talking about Murray?
I think he's talking about Kenneth Murray.
Murray, Kyler at edge, or Nwosu moving forward?
I think it's still going to be mostly Nwosu and Fackrell, at least for a while. I mean, they still haven't placed Murray on the active roster yet.
Yeah.
They designated him for return from the IR. I think they now have 21 days left to bring him back. And they're about 10 to 14 days into that. So he has to come back this week or he can't come back. And my guess is he's been working on the side quite a bit. I think they're probably working on pass rush moves with him and trying to build him up for an opportunity to help on the edge. I think it'll start out, if they bring him back, it'll start out with Nwosu and Fackrell mostly on the edge. Maybe with Kyle. I almost did it myself.
Kyler Murray.
Mainly with Kenneth Murray rotating in as maybe a situational rusher. And then depending on how he does, maybe earning more and more snaps. But I think it's going to be hard to get him on the field with the way Tranquil and White are playing.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a slow roll with Murray, and I think they're gonna try to get him in that linebacker rotation early on, and then I think by the end of the year, we're going to see him a lot more at edge because that's probably where he's best suited at the moment. And yes, it was a autocorrect from your fantasy team. We get it. It's funnier to think that you think Kyler Murray's an edge, though. Could Kyler Murray be a better edge than Nwosu or Fackrell right now? Yes or no?
Oh, he's such a good athlete. Absolutely. He's duck under the tackles. And by the way, Nick, you disappointed me. You had a chance to call out all those people who liked Jordan Love at 7 or 6 last year, whatever it was. And,
oh boy!
And you chose to
2
be
years
nice. You chose peace instead of war, and you disappointed me.
Because Nick always likes war.
He does. He must have,
which is surprising.
He must have hit his head on the ceiling celebrating the Chargers win or something, because that's not the Nick we know.
No. You think Uchenna Nwosu's on this team next year? I say no.
I would say probably not.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's see. Anything else? How do we limit a two-dimensional offense like the Vikings next week? I think Jamie talked about it. You got to build an early lead against that type of team. Make sure they can't run the ball, because if they can run the ball and that game's close like it was today against Philly, and you got Dalvin Cook running the ball, it's going to be an issue. So you got to get out to an early lead, and maybe hope that Samuel and Davis are back next week to go against guys like Thielen and Jefferson.
Yep. You got to make Kirk Cousins beat you.
Yeah. All right. Well, we did it. Thanks, guys. John Taylor, we appreciate you guys. Keep the pods coming. They're coming twice a week. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and where you get podcasts and whatever else. It doesn't matter. We just appreciate you guys being here. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you next time. Chargers win.
Thanks, everybody.
First place.